All right, and welcome to another episode of Influencer Profits. Our guest today is Rossi. Casey is just like every time I just see her, she's like a bubble of great energy. I just love her vibes. You know, she's really out to make a difference in people's lives. She's helping women solopreneurs grow, build, and optimize their holistic businesses so they can really work with more people, work less hours, and live more abundantly. So I'm really excited where our conversation is going to go today. I know we've talked about how to avoid that burnout. That's something me and you have had in common, is that burnout of running multi-million-dollar companies and keeping sane and abundant in the midst of all of it. So I'm excited for today. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, absolutely dive right in because I think we have a lot of similarities. We're kind of cut from the same cloth. So I think it's going to be an awesome conversation.
Yeah, me too. So let's start like a little bit about you and just kind of share with our listeners, you know, who you are, what you do, and then how did you get where what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So I am a holistic business mentor. And as you said, I help women solopreneurs really build their business, whether it's from the ground up or if they've been in business for 10 or 15 years, but they're looking to optimize. They're looking to leave a legacy, or they're looking to actually work less hours. So even sometimes remove some of the things that they're doing in their business that completely rotate around them so they can have a little more freedom, they can enjoy their family, and they can just not be stressed and exhausted all the time. So I'm very passionate about this because I ran a confections company with my bestie from the age 19 for 17 years. So it was a big chunk of my adult life. And in that endeavor, I was really grinding myself down and not really even realizing it. I was just thinking that this is just what you do as a business owner. Like, in order to be successful, you have to play full out. And in order to play full out, that means every waking minute, you know, and at that time, because this was like, we started it in 94, you know, we were like getting orders in through a fax machine. We started out of the kitchen in our home. So it was like every time there was a beep from the fax machine, no matter what time it would be like running downstairs and being super excited about it. And that was awesome. But it also definitely took a toll on my health.
Yeah.
So did that beep like the trigger of like the beep like later on after you got rid of that business, you're like hearing beeps and like waking up and
hear a fax machine again, I'm gonna scream.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do think that we are on sensory overload. And so like I even encourage my clients to turn off like notifications that wing in off the side. And, you know, even for people that they follow, to kind of not allow them to be able to constantly inundate you with new feeds or their content. And really also trying to limit the amount of time that we're on social scrolling, because I think it definitely puts our nervous system in a fight or flight mode. And that really can keep us in that adrenal fatigue or constantly having cortisol shoot out and like wreak havoc on our hormone system and cause disruptions in sleep and all the other things that we can experience when we are fatigued or stressed out in our business.
That's interesting.
I think that's really big, because I know when I was healing from, you know, I had some incredible, I think I went above and beyond the burnout and just blew up. Like, forget the burnout, we just went straight to blow up. I literally had to retrain and let my brain heal from the trauma of my blow up. And I remember going like just this active of scrolling, thank you, in itself like hurt my brain while I was healing. And so that's something that I've had to be very, my scroll time is very limited through the day. And it's setting up those boundaries. So I know you had talked about, and especially like we're in a world now where the hustle and the grind and do whatever it takes. If you're not doing whatever it takes, you're not really in your business. You don't really want it bad enough. And it's been like punched into us as entrepreneurs. And so we're like, well, this must be how it is. Right. So
Absolutely.
What are some ways that we can get past that and really live that life, like be able to, I don't know, balance or integrating, whatever word is the best word to use to be able to have that?
For sure. I think the first thing is really seeing if that message that is inundated of the go, the hustle, the push is true for you. And then also accepting that it very well could be false. And so when you accept that and you can start to create your own reality, you realize that this method could work for someone over here, But if it's not going to work for you, then it won't be sustainable. And the whole point to creating our business and kind of being that artist on a blank canvas is that we get to design it however we want to. Like, that's the most exciting thing for me, is that, like, really the sky's the limit. Like, we're only limited by our own self limitations. And so I think tuning in to your own intuition and realizing what's my edge, because my edge may not look like 12 or 16 hours and constantly scrolling and listening to an authority that says you need to post on social for 6 hours a day in order to have true engagement. If that doesn't feel like that's in alignment for you, then it's going to fizzle out and you will burn out if you try to do something that doesn't fit you and your personality. So I think that's the biggest thing, is really taking ownership of how you want to craft your business instead of being influenced by people that are quote unquote successful in the field telling you what's worked for them. It's awesome if it worked for them, but it may not work for you. And just being open enough to say, oh, okay, I actually get to create this myself. Like, it's an empowering feeling to realize that you're the designer. You get to architect this blueprint in the way that works for you. And it takes a little tweaking. That all sounds awesome. And I think sometimes people feel like this work-life balance is very elusive. And, there's some clickbait titles that are like, the work-life balance is a fraud. People are lying to you that you can even achieve it, And so I think that, sometimes it is a little bit elusive. And I think it's a balancing act, and you kind of have to test it out. And honestly, I'm still trying. And even though it's such a big part of what I teach, I'm also, in alignment and very aware that we teach what we most need to know, because I'm just as guilty on a Sunday at 7:00 with the laptop open going, why am I still working? This is ridiculous. And in order for me to have integrity, I have to make my own boundaries. So I don't have it right. It's totally about like progress over perfection, no doubt. And it's really easy to get sucked in. It's really easy to get sucked in or realize that your audience is waiting. They're waiting for a response, and everybody is so used to instant gratification and an instant response that sometimes even an hour in our digital world can feel like eternity, like you're being a slacker, because that's like flashing, light has been sitting there for an hour, for God's sakes, attend to it. So I think like just getting a grip and having a reality of like, let's take a breath. Like, it's only been an hour. Like, I still have the rest of my day to attend to my inbox.
Yeah, and not make yourself wrong for it, right? Because I think sometimes because we see all of it in our face, and then of course everyone creates those click titles because they want you to click through their stuff and listen to them. But it's also like honoring, it's like you said, honoring yourself and not making you wrong for the way that you work. And I know that that's something that I've had to struggle with is, well, this person has all this success and I want what they have. And if I don't do what they do, then I'm wrong in the way that I run my business. Which of course is a complete lie, and the stupid stories that we all have that we tell ourselves, but just being in the spirit of authenticity, I think it's something that we all go through, and it's all something, there is no right or wrong. It's like what works for you best.
100%. 100%.
So my question is, how did you make a transition, and how you went from confectionary, which is like sugar stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure I got that right. I know it was like something else. But then now mentoring holistic practitioner type people.
Yeah, it completely seems like a dichotomy, doesn't it?
It's interesting.
Yeah. And so basically, I have had a love of holistic modalities ever since I was young. Like, I mean, probably as far back as I can remember is probably from like 16. I was really interested in other religions, philosophies, spiritualities when I became a vegetarian at a very young age in a pretty strict Catholic, non-vegetarian family, so it's like, what do you mean you're not going to eat the meatball, So I've always gone against the grain, and that just blossomed really into the plant world on a deeper level, holistic medicine, self-healing, and taking ownership for our own health and our own bodies. And so that's really kind of the direction that I wanted to go in. And then I met my bestie, and she was an artist and had all these other great creative ideas. And so I was like super young at the time. I met her when I was 18. and she was 24 years my senior. So she had a lot more world experience than I did. And she was also an artist. So it was like, hey, let's do a jewelry business with, precious gemstones, and we'll fly to Arizona and Las Vegas and go like mining. And I'm like, that sounds cool. So we ended up doing like 9 different businesses before our 10th one kicked off and really took hold. And the 10th one was the chocolate manufacturing company, where we did upscale gift and gourmet. And that's the one where we really saw a massive amount of momentum, success, 7+ figures. And that's an interesting thing, because that wasn't something that was top of my radar. Like when I was 18, 19, starting my first corporation, it wasn't like, I want to be a food manufacturer. Like, in fact, one of my very first sales experiences was with an upper end department store. And we were selling like an individually wrapped truffle that was in this really beautiful gold metallic box. And we were selling it to them. And they were like, well, what's your shelf life? And like, again, I'm 19 and I'm like, what the hell is a shelf life? Like, it was literally like, back in the day, right? I had to go and look it up in a dictionary. And then it's like, it was totally learning by the seat of our pants. So it was just, I truly believe destiny. Like, that was what we were meant to do. That lasted 17 years. So it wasn't a fly by night fluke. And so we were like meant to do that. But when we sold that company in 2011, part of my reason for really wanting to kind of pivot was because I was feeling very out of alignment with my beliefs. And I really started feeling like I'm kind of selling poison. Not kind of, I am selling poison, and that really felt terrible. And we tried to recreate a line that had nutraceuticals in it and, was definitely more on the healthier side of things. And our clientele really wasn't into it. They were like, where's the caramel toffee crunch? Like, where's the mega mudslide with all the M&Ms on it? Because we had cultivated 10,000 wholesale companies and 3,000 retail clients, and they were all in the niche of wanting novelty chocolate. So when we tried to pivot and do Popcorn for a Purpose, where we were donating part of our profits to really good causes, and they had really healthy foods like maca and goji berries, and this was before the superfood craze, so we were a little bit ahead of the trend, it really fell flat. And that was, I think, when I first really realized that you can't just come up with a new product just because you have a live audience and expect them to be as excited as you are. It was really a totally different market. We would have had to have a complete revamp, or a side business or a sister business, where we really then dove into our ideal client market and marketed and messaged specifically to that genre. And that just didn't happen. And so at that point I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to one of my very first loves, which was aromatherapy. And I had first gotten certified in 94. And so in 2010, I went back and continued my training and got certified to the clinical level. And I actually started an aromatherapy boutique business where I created handmade products out of essential oils for personal wellness. And I did one-on-one consultations. So from there, I really started seeing this pattern where there was these people taking certification courses, whether it was in aromatherapy or nutrition or mind body healing, all the things that became my world, and they didn't know how to bridge it over into the business. Yeah. And I had this light bulb moment go off, and I was like, wow, I could actually be that bridge for them. I could be the one that takes my 2 decades worth of business experience, both with brick and mortar and online, and help these newly certified people in the healing arena with holistic modalities figure out how to message, market, get a web presence, and actually start presenting and being visible online. So that's a long answer to your question, but that's actually the trajectory in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
That's what I was looking for. So it was your epiphany bridge.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So very cool. So I guess my question, and I don't know how much of the podcast you've listened to, but is we only have 2 standard questions on this podcast. The rest is just kind of flowing. And what is your vision for your business? And where do you see this going in year, 3 years, 5 years? What do you see? How are you taking it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my vision is to empower as many female entrepreneurs to use their voice and to overcome any of the mental gremlins that keep them stuck and held back from actually sharing their gifts, sharing their message, and getting out there and being the leader and the creator. Because many times people feel super safe, myself included, behind the scenes, cheering someone else on, or being the one that can contribute to the success, but is always kind of the one behind the curtain making that happen. And I did that for several years. I really helped people launch and helped people have successful launches, but I was never the one launching. So my hope is that I can really help people break free from their insecurities and fears that keep them hiding. And so that's really my big vision, is so much more than money. It's so much more than being driven for fame. It's truly to make this world a brighter place and lead by example, really kind of, like they say, be the change that we wish to see, be shining examples, because I truly believe when you see that leader doing things that you were afraid of, it inspires you so much to say, like, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's the part that makes me super excited. So I really just see this as a continued ripple effect of inspiration, empowerment, females becoming their own boss and not having any old paradigm hold them back, no shoulds, and really no limitations. And then we don't have to even worry about like the income, gap. You get to change that. You get to choose to create your own income without having to be told how much you can earn or when you're discardable. So that's part of what I'm really excited about, is really having a movement of equality and inspiration.
I love that. And it's actually really funny that you brought that up, because we had a very similar conversation, because I told you we are a lot alike. And I've been one of those people, I've helped multi-million-dollar organizations get to where they are. I've always been that support role for everyone else, and that stepping into that leadership has been a breakthrough in itself. So what would you say to those people who are listening? Because I know that there's a lot of us out there that taking that step of being behind the scenes and always running the show behind the scenes and then stepping into your true power. What would you say to them?
I say that it's a process that maybe for some it can happen overnight, but I think that it does take some mindfulness. It takes a desire to want to slowly crack out of your shell, and it takes a commitment to consistently put in action steps towards that goal, even if they're baby ones. Because if you don't, in my opinion, kind of set yourself up for micro shifts in how you perceive yourself, then it'll be a very long process to see a significant change or a shift. Because we all love our safety zone, our comfort zone, like it's comfy, right? And it's safe. And it takes a while to realize that you can dissolve some of those mental barriers and be just as safe and just as comfortable breaking through. So I would say one is being aware of it and just kind of recognizing it. Two, not being attached to a label. So I know a lot of people that are shy or introverted almost use that as this like out, like, well, I'm an introvert, so I don't need to do a Facebook Live. And I felt that way too. And I took a whole year before I clicked go on the Facebook Live button because I was afraid. And I would say that you have permission to dissolve that label and realize when it's not serving you. Because you can be an introvert and still go live and still be visible and still take a leadership role. There's a lot of gentle giants that are shy, but still make a difference and still can stand up in a leadership role. And then I think lastly is really just making small benchmarks for yourself of how can you step out just a little bit, just dip your toe in today, and tomorrow dip it in a little bit more. Like you don't have to jump in off the deep end. And I think that for people that have been stuck and afraid for a long time, that feels more doable, because we can't automatically just snap our fingers and do something. In fact, I was speaking to a client yesterday and this same exact topic came up and she's like, well, I'm an introvert. And we have a mutual friend who's really rocking it with a membership site and doing stories and both on Facebook and Instagram. And, she's very vivacious. She's beautiful. She's blonde. She's funny, and my client's like, that's not me. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't have to be you. you have your own shiny, beautiful, that you can expose to the world. And it doesn't look like this person, but it can still be just as attractive. And there are people waiting for the exact way that you're going to deliver that message and make an impact with your own personality. That's the beauty of it. There are certain people that can't learn from the very shiny, in your face, 5-inch stiletto, gorgeous, whatevers, right? But they can really learn from someone that's like calm and quiet and deep and respectful and has a certain pattern that they speak. There are people waiting to hear that message delivered in that specific way.
It's so interesting. It seems like we attract, it just makes sense. But so we had Vanessa Talbot on, and then our friend Maria. Did I pronounce that right? She listens, so I know she's going to give me a hard time if I mess it up. No, but they're both very, very successful women, and both they consider themselves introverts. But they do what they do, and they have a lot of success with it. And it doesn't matter that they're not super out there and super whatever. And, they've been able to get through what they need to get through to do what they need to do. And it's very powerful just watching them, interact and stuff and just rock their businesses. So.
I love that. I love that you gave examples, because that's another thing that can really help people is they can look at mentors that have gone before them with similar personalities and go, oh, I guess it can be done. Like, I actually really like her style and she's showing up and her audience is responding. And so I love that you gave some examples that people can look at and exemplify.
That's it's funny. That's a big part of our methodology in marketing is finding case studies of your clients of having some sort of overcoming something. And so we got a client that was an offline client that she had no idea about the tech stuff. And she went and closed 138K in 6 weeks. And we had another one that had 2 small kids and never had a business in their life. And she came to us and we helped her start her business. And she maxed out her program and signed millions of dollars worth of grants.
Amazing.
And so these are all, it's just what we do for our clients in the sense of how.
I think we just do it in our life now that we're saying this out loud, we're just always finding people to be able to show you can do this. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're, whatever it is that you're doing. There's someone who's done it and can, and if they've done it, you certainly can too. I know there's this show, and I don't watch shows. I just remember someone was asking about some good business shows on Netflix. I can't even remember the name of the show now, but we watched the trailer of it. Is it Jean, or I don't know. She's it's almost like a personal development seminar, but on Netflix.
Oh, cool.
Kind of thing, yeah. And the only part that we saw the trailer, she was talking about how she's an introvert, but here she is on stage in front of she's in a Netflix documentary, in front of millions of people. So I like how you said not to use your label yourself and use that as an excuse of what you can and can't do.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for that. That was powerful. So I know that you've been through a lot of a lot of experience over 17 plus, I don't know how long, 20 years, I guess much longer than that, of entrepreneurship. And there's something that can really be said about that in itself. And I know that a lot of times, especially online, we have it set where it's all hunky-dory and everything is great. And this is shiny, happy business. And you always have to be this perfect light and everything is always going great. But that's never the case, right? And I think that there's something very powerful in the dark side of the things that we go through and the low ends of things. And I never like to use the word failure, but that's just a word that people relate to. So what would be something that you would say would be your biggest failure, so to speak? And then how are you able to overcome that in your business?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think that, we almost have mini failures all the time, and I think that taking ownership of that is what I think makes us kind of champions, not to be trite, but I think that looking at the end of your week and being let's do a little review. How could I have shown up better here? How could I have been a more compassionate listener over here? Maybe I could have been a little bit more thoughtful in this email response. I really like to do that more in bite-sized pieces because I feel it kind of trains your brain to be in that constant never-ending improvement. So I'm a big believer of Kaizen philosophy. And so I think kind of doing a review on a consistent basis gives you like this muscle power of like, oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. Didn't leave myself enough time after a launch on that. And I got kind of grumbly, like whatever it happens to be, or like I didn't leave a spacer day after my vacation and I jumped right in and had like 80 emails in my inbox and got like, So I think that if you can make it more of a consistent practice to look at what challenged you in the week, I think that will really set you up for success on a continuum, and you'll see a big difference overall. I think that one of the hard kind of stuck times that I felt personally was that period after selling a successful company and then being on my own. That was really, really challenging for me because I felt super safe being in a dynamic duo. And I had my bestie for 18 years of business. And now it was like, even though we are still best friends even now, and I've been in business for 28 years, I had a strong period of time, probably 4 years, that I was kind of like, crap, I feel so alone. Like it's me, myself, and I. And if I'm going to make this work, I have to be the front person. I can't be the behind the scene person making everything run, but I actually have to pull up my bootstraps and figure out a way to, be an independent leader. And that took a lot of time, and a lot of things come up. I think your insecurity is under the magnifying glass. And I think that all of our self-critical nature, and I saw a lot of the dark side of myself of being a people pleaser and a perfectionist. And those things were not serving me at all being a solopreneur. And I would see it show up in my work where I wouldn't have boundaries. I would always say yes to things. I would consistently give my clients more time than what they booked for because I really wanted them to like me. I wanted a really good testimonial, and I think it took several years to really start to realize that if I wasn't going to stop searching for external validation, then I would always be this way. And so I really took the time to start to work on that and really sought help with business mentors of my own. I sought help with an Enneagram coach to understand my Enneagram type. And because I am a considerate helper, that didn't help with my need to constantly please other people, but it also gave me this insight of like, okay, now that I understand this about my personality, what can I do? What can I harness on, other personality types? How can I harness those personality types and maybe learn from people that don't struggle with the same things that I'm struggling with and bring them into a part of my daily life? So I would say that has been probably one of my biggest challenges to work on, is really going through all of those emotional aspects, because I believe anybody can learn strategy, right? We're in this technology age that you can type anything into Google and pretty much get the answer to your question. But I think what truly makes you kind of dig deep, especially as a solopreneur where there's nowhere to hide and nowhere to go, is like being aware of the emotional things that so many times it's the mindset that keeps you stuck. And when you can start to look at that and unloosen it and chip away at it, that's when you really start to see a big soar in things. And hopefully that's an answer to your question.
So what's an Enneagram? I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's Enneagram. It's ENNEAGRAM. And it's basically kind of a complex personality diagnosis or system. And it's broken down into 9 different Enneagram types. And people go right in and specialize in it. So it's kind of, if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality testing or the DISC personality profiling, it's basically, in my mind, that on steroids, because when I hooked up with my Enneagram coach, I got a 30-plus page manual specifically on my like numerology or my Enneagram pattern. And it was so much deeper than any other personality profile testing that I had been involved in. And that really, really gave me insight, not only for my own self, but understanding the type of clients that I was working with and how they could be benefited if I understood how they like to learn or where their blind spots were that maybe they weren't even aware of. they actually even do Enneagram numbers for your team. So if you have a team or a corporation, they will do the Enneagram type for all the team personalities as a whole. So the team leaves with like one number for that group. And so you can see how you can be highly functioning as a team, where the blind spots might be, and how you can overcome them. So I feel it's like a really powerful thing that can just give you more knowledge, which is more insight, which is more clarity, which is more power. So that's my philosophy.
Totally.
That's awesome.
Maybe I have heard of this one, but it just kind of glanced over. I'm pretty familiar with Kobe. Have you taken that one?
I haven't.
You should check that one out. It's supposed to be one of the things that I've heard about personality type, and I don't know if it's how this one is like there's the way you are showing up this moment, and then there's ways that you can kind of change, like your personality essentially can change depending on your growth and different things. Kobe's supposed to be from like, it's just your regular way of being. And like, it's what your go-to is all the time. And so it's supposed to, and it's only there's four different, I know there's fast start, which is like a lot of entrepreneurs are people that are just like really like out and like they're taking action. But then there's follow through. So there's fast start, follow through. And then there's fact finder, I want to say, which is somebody that has to get all the information before and there's one more and I can't think of what it is, but yeah, check that one out. It's like $50 to take the test, but it's
fun. Yeah, I love that stuff. That's awesome.
Personalities all day, every day. I think it's really fascinating the way that we're designed and we're built. And when you can have a deeper understanding of who you are and how you're designed, then life can work just a lot easier for you. We actually have a episode that's specifically, that's what she does, is integrative work with your personality and coming.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's very, very fascinating work. So I have very much enjoyed this conversation with you. I think you just have so much, you are giving so much to people, and I really believe in your message and what you're out to accomplish. So thank you for.
My pleasure. I love it. It's so cool to connect with, like-minded people that share the same kind of philosophy. So I get really charged up. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you both.
Yeah. And where can people go to find you when they're like, I love this chick. I want to, I'm a holistic woman. I need to go work with her and speak with her. Where can they go and find you at?
For sure. You can head to my website, which is KCRossi.com, and it's letter KCROSSI.com.
Awesome. And we will have that link below in the comments as well. So you can just go over there, click on that, and go check her out. Casey, thank you so much. Do you have any last words to wrap this all up? You've already given us so much, but I just have a feeling you're a ball of wisdom.
My last words are that you are valuable. You have a unique inner wisdom inside of you, and don't be afraid to let that light shine, because people need to feel that warmth. They need things illuminated, and we each have that capability, if not responsibility, while we're here on this earth, to share that with as many people as possible. So go light it up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And listeners, thank you again for listening to another Influencer Profits, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Awesome. See ya.